Okay. The lesson which we are going to take today, that's about reproduction with a cone in flowers, right? Reproduction with a cone in flowers. A term we are using for those plants which are producing cones and flowers. I can answer. Understand. What? One. Which one? Those plants which has cones and flowers. Is which group of the plants? One we have angiosperms, another we have gymnosperms, right? So this should be one in this cup, right? It should be angiosperm or it should be gymnosperm.
Angiosperm is flowers, right. And gymno is the cones,
right? Angiosperms and gymnosperms. So both of them we are going to take, right? Both of them. But here we are going to take those which are having cones or either flowers. So we will study reproduction in both, right? How the reproduction occurs in flowers and how the reproduction occurs in cones, right?
For the flowers, there is this part on top of the flower. The germ organ is like pollen gland. That pollen gland can be detected by the wind or any means of transportation to another like female flower, which goes into the bubble. These are hairs and eggs that can make a seed on top of the flower. The seed is planted in the ground. Very much.
What about the cones? That is about the flowers.
Yeah.
Who can tell me about the cones? About the cones. Yes. Okay. Male and female, and the possibility of male and female both in the case of flowers and cones, right? Yeah. So it can happen sometimes in the same flower. In the same flower, it can happen. Both male and females can be in the same flower. Another possibility, it can be in the same plant. Another possibility, it can be even in different plants. One plant is here, another plant is here, right? So it can happen. It can happen. Now, in case of the cone, what will happen? We have it can occur in one cone, it can occur in two different cones, or how? How many type of cone we have? Two, right? One we have male cone and one we have female cone. So as we are having in the flower three possibilities. So we are not having three possibilities in the case of the cone, right? It will be one male and one female cone. But in the case of the flowers, both can be in the one flower. Both can be in the one plant. Both can be from the different plants, right? Then it's different based on the pollination.
I just said this is one like chapter on this, like no lesson about corn.
Yes, this is why I checked.
Sorry? There is no lesson about like corn.
Corn we have finished before. Chapter 22. Chapter 22 is about corn. Yes. It's already finished here. Yes. Here we are going to study only flowers, let's say. Right? Only flowers. We have corn are in it. But both of them, they have similarities. I told you before that we have around about 7-8 cycles, right? So 5 we already take. We have only 2 or 3 remaining. Most of them we already took. Okay, life cycles of gymnosperms, right? So angiosperms are finished. We have only gymnosperms in this chapter, right? We will study only about gymnosperms, which are flowering plants, right? Seed plants, fruit plants. Okay, what are the reproductive structure of the gymnosperms? Simple. What are the reproductive structure of gymnosperms? Yes.
This is supposed to be in chapter 22. The schedule is for corns.
Both of them will be studied.
Yeah.
should be present.
No, what I mean is like in the flower point, this is the production of cones and flowers. Because there is also like a slide about cones.
What are the reproductive structure of gemstones? The reproductive structure of gemstones are flower. Right? The reproductive structure of gemstones are flowers. We have studied that pollen glands, stigma, ovaries. This is present where?
And this is the flowers.
Okay, for angiosperms are flower, right?
Yeah.
Just 1 minute. Just 1 minute.
See the basics 146 cells. And this forms the 6 flowers. Yes, it is the comp.
This should be angiosperm, right?
Yeah.
This should be angiosperm. Yes. Okay. The reproductive structure of gemstones, it should occur in seed. It should occur in cone, right? Seed or cone. Then the reproductive structure which we are going to study, that will be what? Angiosperm, right? If you look to the reproductive structure in gymnosperm take place in a cones which are produced by mature sporophyte plants. So this we already took in the previous, right? Gymnosperm produce two types of cones, pollen cone and seed cone. So we are saying that one we have male cone and another we have female cone. Male cone is small while the female cone is large. Yes. Here is our topic, right? What are the reproductive structure of angiosperm? Right? Flowers are the reproductive structure of angiosperm. Now, who can tell me the male part of the flower and the female part of the flower? It was also in your exam. The diagram was there in your exam. If you remember, what is the male and what is the female part? The question which we are having in the exam, we call it same. Anthridium and archegonium.
Yeah.
Anthridium and archegonium. If you look to the label the diagram, so the first point was Anthridium, the second was archegonium. So one was male and other was female, right? So what are the reproductive structure of angiosperm? The reproductive structure of angiosperms we are having in the angiosperm, it is flower, right? So we have to take flowers. Flowers are the reproductive organs that are composed of 4 kinds of specialized leaves: sepal, petals, stamens, and carpels, right? The structure of flowers, right? So if you take the internal structure or the complete structure of flower, so 4 main parts we are going, or 4 main specialized structure we are going to study, right? That is sepals, petals, stamen, and carpels, the leaves, the one which you can see, right? The one which we can see. That are divided into how many? That are divided into 4, which are sepals, petals, stamens, and carpels, right? Now the first one, right? The first one which we have sepals, right? Enclose the buds before it open and protect the flowers while it develop, right? So sepals, if you look to the flowers, right? So the green part down the colored part, right? That is called what? That is called sepal, right? You can see this is what? This is the sepal part. Now if you look to the function of the sepal part, right? So it encloses what? It encloses the buds, right? Enclose what? Enclose the buds of what? The buds of flower. And if it is going to enclose it, so mean it will do the process of the function of protection also, right? So it will even protect it. So at which time? When the flower is going to develop. So that is what? That is sepal, right? That is about what? That is about petals, right? So petals are often brightly colored and are found just inside the sepal, right? We are saying the flower is protected by the sepals, right? So the internal parts, right? The internal parts, sepal is going to protect the second part, which is petal, right? The color part of the flowers, right? The color part of the flowers, the color of the flower depends on the chlorophyll present here, right? Which type of chlorophyll is present here? So the function of the sepal is to protect also the petal, right? Which is the second part, which is the color part of the plant flower. So petal attract insects and other pollinators to the flowers. Now, if you look in the case of pollination, right? For the case of pollination, this is important one, right? Now, this is not if you look to the petal, to the sepal or to the petal, right? So they are not going to take part in the reproduction. Right? They are not taking part in the reproduction. If you look to the reproduction, so reproductive part is here, right? The middle one which you can see, this is the reproductive part, right? If you look to the sepal, sepal is important for this to protect the petals and internal organ. And petal is important for what? To attract the insects. And if there are no insects, so mean the pollination or the reproduction will occur very less, right? So the color is important for attracting the insect. Once the insect comes to this color, so it will stick here. And this is the point where we will have what? We will have pollen grain, right? So if an insect comes to any plant, so insect, the pollen grain which is present at this point, right? Mostly at this point. So it will stick to the body of the insect. And this insect will fly where? It will fly to another flower. So when it flies to another flower, so the insect has already the pollen grain. So it will stick here and it will come to the ovary, and that cycle will continue. The next part we have the male part of the flower, right, which is called stamen, right? Keep in mind that the names in the cycles are slightly changed. I told you before, right? The names will be slightly changed. In the case of the gymnosperms, it was in 3D Menaxeronium, and now it's going to slightly change. The main part of the flower consists of an anther and a filament, which together make the stem, right? Anther and iridium, right? If you look, the anther, so it arises from iridium, which we will call here in the case of the gymnosperm, right? So that is the main part of the flowers, which is made up of anther, right? And a filament. Anther and a filament, right? If you look here, the inside, right? This is what? Take one, so that you what? Enter the tip shape. The tip shape is called enter, and the filament, the tube shape. The tube shape is called what? Filament, right? And collectively, both of them we call what? Both of them we call stamen, or we can say a main part of the flower. Main part of the flower. Okay. So now you can see in the same flowers, we will have both male and female or not. It will be right. It will be. But the case of pollination, so it depends. It can be self-pollination or it can be cross-pollination, right? It can be self-pollination, it can be even cross-pollination. Who can differentiate between self and cross-pollination? After this point, I will ask, right? After the human part. What question? No. What is the difference between self and cross-pollination? An anther is an oval sac where meiosis takes place, producing pollen grain, right? So anther is a part of male part, right? Where what happens? Where meiosis occur, right? Where meiosis occur, and as a result of meiosis, can start to form, right? And then it should be pollen grain, right? It should be pollen grain, and it will be in which part? It will not occur in the. It will occur in the anther part, right? The bulb part, or we can say the flowerish like part. The filament is a long, thin stalk that support an anther, right? So that is also a part of the.
It's not the function of stem. Yes.
Sorry.
Stem.
Stamen.
Stem. For like tree, we have stem.
It means like instead of it is like the stem for the
No, this is the function of stem in the tree.
The stem, like to support the flowers.
The filament is a long thin stalk that support the anther, right? Okay. Now the next part which we have, right, in the flower, the major part, the innermost floral parts are called carpels, right? The innermost is called what? It is called carpel, also called pistil, right? Or we can say the female reproductive part of the flower is called carpel, right? The female part of the female part in the gymnosperms is called what? Here we call it carpel in the gymnosperms.
I think not antheridium. The
Intheridium is male and Archegonium is supposed to be female, right? So here we call it carpel and here we call it Archegonium, right? Which produce the female gametophyte. So if you look to the stamen, it will produce male gametophyte. So male gametophyte is pollen grain, right? It will occurs in the anther with the help of the meiosis. While the female gametophytes, we have what? Female gametophytes will occur where? It will occur in the innermost part of the flower. The innermost part of the flower, right? And in which place? Mostly in the ovary it will occur, right? In the ovary, the last part, it will occur mostly. So which produce the female gametophyte? And female gametophyte is what? It should be pollen grain. Male is pollen grain and female should be ovary or egg, right? Ovary or egg should be there. So here you have three parts of the female reproductive structure, right? The first, if you look to the entire structure, right, it is made from three parts, right, which is carpel. It is made from three parts. One part, right, on which mostly receive the pollen grain, which mostly receive the male gametes and pollen grain. It is stigma, right? The upper part is called stigma. Now, if the stigma receive pollen grain from any bird, from any insect, right, or with the help of wind, so this cross pollination, it comes from any birds, right? With the help of wind, it can even come from here to here, right? Because this is mass part, right? So it's not too much far. So if slide here come, so the pollen grain which is present here, it can reach here with the help of the ear, right?
Or insects.
Right? Or with the help of even insect, yes. So it can reach here. So when the pollen grain it stick to the stigma, After this, the function of style will start. The style, which is a tube-like structure, which take the pollen grain and give it to the ovary, right? So the third part, so when the style take the pollen grain from the stigma and is given to the ovary, so after that, when the male and female, the male pollen grain and the female ovary combines, so fertilization will occur, right? And after fertilization, it will develop, the cycle will continue. Each carpel has a broad base forming an ovary, right? The base, which you can see down, right? That is called ovary. The ovary contain one or more ovules where female gametophytes are produced, right? Ovules are the egg-like shape, which you can see. It can be one, it can be two, or it can be more. Depends on the plants. Different plants has different, right? And as in the anther, we have pollen grain, which we call male gametophyte. So the ovary here we have in female, that is female gametophyte. The narrow stalk of the carpel is style, and the function of style is what?
To move the
The support is also a function. Support of the what we can say? Support of the stigma will also occur, right? But beside the support of the stigma, what will happen? Beside the main important function which it has, it will take a pollen grain and it will give it to the ovary, right? So pollen grain, that is the main function, right? For the style. The next one we have at the top of the style is the stigma, right? A sticky portion where pollen grains frequently land, right? So that will be a stigma where the pollen grain will land from different sources. We have mainly how many sources? How many sources we have? For pollen grain to reach stigma. Two. Two, right? Cross and self pollination. Besides this, we have two. Either with the help of wind or either with the help of animal, right? And in the case of those organisms which are dependent on water, like mosses, bryophytes,
There's also artificial pollination.
here we have three types, right? three sources are there. There we have additional source of water. In the case of the Moses, hydrowords, liverwort, onwards, right? Which we studied in chapter 21, I think, right? So there we have two sources. Here are three sources. Here we have two because it makes the plant different from the bryophytes. This is the only reason which make it successful. They do not need water for fertilization. Its fertilization can occur without plant. Without water. Okay, so here you have the entire diagram, right, which you can see parts of a typical flower, right? Just a normal any flowers you can take any flower, right? So you will have almost this part, right? In the same flowers, you will have both male and females. But in the case of cone, it will be indifferent, right? Male cone will be different and female cone will be different. But if you look here in this case, so in this case you have what? In this case, both of them you have. So first, the structure, right? Structure, it is made from four major parts, right? One we have sepal, right? Petals. Sepal and petals are not the reproductive parts. Sepals and petals are not the reproductive parts, right? So if you can divide, right, like if you are going to write a subjective question based on this, so you have to divide the parts of the flowers as reproductive and non-reproductive, right? So we have two parts, reproductive, two non-reproductive. So the non-reproductive parts is sepal and is petal, right? The color part and both are the color, but one is supportive, right, and other is attractive, right? These two parts. Beside this, we have carpel and we have stamen, right? So carpel is the female part and stamen is the male part, right? Then carpel is divided further and the stamen is divided further. So stamen is divided, the main part, it is divided into two parts, right? Anther and filament, right? Anther, yes, anther and filament. The female part is divided into three. It's divided into three. One, stigma, right, on which the pollen gland will stick. Second one, style, which is a tube between the stigma and the ovary, right? And the last part which we have ovary, where there are right. Male gametophyte is present at which part? What? Male gametophyte is present at the anther, right? And the insects, it will take, or the vent will take pollen grains from the anther, right? Now about the pollination, we have here.
No, we have the reproduction. How it works inside.
Okay, now here in the case of the flower pollination, right? If we talk about pollination, so pollination we will have of how many types? Two types. One we have self pollination, one we will have cross pollination, right? Self pollination and cross pollination. So self pollination is that pollination. Yes. Self pollination. This we have. Right? And this right? So self pollination, which occurs that the pollen grain from this right anther goes to the stigma, right? But in the same flower. In the same flower. That is called what? That is self pollination. Now we have one plant here, one plant sunbetals, right? Insect come to this plant, right? And it takes nectar, but beside nectars, the pollen grain which is here, it sticks to the body of the insect. And that insect flies to the other plant, right? It flies to the other plant, so the pollen grain stick on the stigma of the other plant, right? From this plant to any far plant. This is cross pollination, right? Now, if you look to the plants and animals, sexual reproduction is here, right? Genetic variation will occur. We know that, right? But more genetic variation will occur in which case? In cross pollination, right? If it is like if you look at the DNA of this plant, so it will be almost the same, right? But if you take the DNA of this plant and the plant which is going to cross pollinate, right? So there will be more variation will be there, right? So two more variant plants and more genetic diversity will occur. So in the case of self pollination, less genetic variation will occur, right? And in the case of cross pollination, more genetic variation will occur. Clear? Okay, next we have A typical flower produces both male and female gametophytes. In some plants, male and female gametophytes are produced in a separate plant on the same individual, right? It happens, right? So one plant we have, so it has two flowers, three flowers. So it can happen. Then in some plant, male and female gametophytes are produced in a separate flowers on the same. Like plant you have, and it has 3, 4, 5, 10 flowers, right? So one flowers contain male and other flowers contain female. Now, a question here it is that if we are saying in the same flower, right? We are saying cell pollination in the same flower. If a plant has more than 10 flowers, and from flower 1, the pollen grains come to flower 10, this will be cell pollination and cross pollination. We are saying cell pollination because the same flower is same pollination. Huh? We have 10 flowers. Flower 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So when the pollen grain from flower 1 comes to flower 10, it will be cell or cross pollination? Cross. It is same. The plant has same DNA. It's the same plant. It's the same plant, right? So it is the same plant. All the things are same. So that is normal pollination, right? Cell pollination. If different plants occur, right? Different plants, one here, one here. So that is cross, right? But in the same plant occur. Most of the cases it occur in this, right? Like if you look to the flowering plant. So flowering plants, they are not having one flower mostly. They are having a lot of flowers. So in the same plant, pollination happens, right? And there is called what? There is called cell pollination. Okay, how much time we have? I don't know which time this. I totally missed my session. That which time it is going to start and which time is going to finish.
No, I think it has 2 minutes.
Huh?
I think.
Yes, we have only 2 minutes. Okay, which time you are sleeping?
Sleeping.
We will stop here, and in the next lesson, we will start from the life cycle of induced sperm, right?
2 o'clock. 2 o'clock.